by meaning in itself. He uses his work to make a living. Certainly that is dignified, sensible, and necessary.
Yes, but that is not quite enough to make one happy if one spends 8 hours a day in something which in itself has no meaning and interest except that one gains money from it.
Well, by meaning and interest in work, maybe I'm pressing this unnecessarily hard. What specifically do you mean when a man works at a factory with a monkey wrench, let us say? What meaning, what deeper meaning are you looking for?
Well, there is a creative pleasure which, for instance, the artisan in the Middle Ages or in a country like Mexico still today has, namely the pleasure of creating something. Now you find quite a few skilled workers who still have that pleasure. Maybe in a steel mill, maybe a worker who works with a complicated machine. He has a sense that he's creating something. But if you take a salesman who sells a useless commodity, he feels like a fraud and he hates his commodity like something.
Mm-hmm. But you say a useless commodity if he sells toothbrushes or automobiles, televisions?
Useless is a relative term. For instance, if in order to make his quota he has to make people buy things of which he knows they shouldn't buy them, then indeed, in terms of the needs of these people, they are useless, even if in themselves they are all right.
In writing about men in America, you've talked frequently about what you call the marketing orientation. What do you mean by the marketing orientation, Dr. Fromm?
I mean by that our main way of relating ourselves to others is like things relate themselves to things on the market. We want to exchange our own personality, or as one says sometimes, our personality package, for something. Now, this is not so true for the manual worker. The manual worker does not have to sell his personality. He doesn't have to sell his smile. But what you might call the symbol pushers, that is to say all the people who deal with figures, with paper, with men, who manipulate, to use a better or nicer word, manipulate men and signs and words. All those today have not only to sell their service, but in the bargain they have to sell their personality more or less. There are exceptions.
So his sense of his own value must therefore depend upon what the market, in a sense, is willing to pay for him.
Exactly. Just as a handbag which cannot be sold because there is not enough demand is economically speaking useless. And if the handbag could think, it would have a terrific inferiority feeling, because not having been bought, it would feel useless. So does a man who considers himself as a thing, and if he's not successful to sell himself, he feels he is a failure. I think if you would ask people what their concept of heaven is, and if they were honest, they would say it's a kind of big department store with new things every week and enough money to buy everything new. Happiness today, I think, is for most people the satisfaction of the eternal suckling to drink in more, this, that, and the other.
And what should happiness be?
Happiness should be something which results from the creative, genuine, intense relatedness, awareness, responsiveness to everything in life, to man, to nature. Happiness does not exclude sadness. If a person responds to life, he's sometimes happy and sometimes sad. What matters is he responds. Our social relationships are relatively shallow. We are actually afraid to be intimate with people. Many people even with their wives and husbands. And we substitute, or we rather hide this fear of real intimacy by a superficial kind of friendliness, which is quite nice, but nevertheless very shallow. But I think there is another answer to your question, which I should like to give. Actually, if you take the average American, and studies have shown that, he is really concerned only with private affairs, that is to say, with his health, his money, and family affairs. He is not concerned with his society. He talks about it. But, you know, if one speaks of being concerned, I mean something about which one loses one's sleep sometimes. Mm-hmm. And the average American never loses his sleep about affairs which relate to his society and to our whole country. That is to say, I mean, he has separated his private life from his existence as a member of his society and leaves that to the specialists in the government to take care of.